Welcome back, Pierogi Joe here. And hey, it's tailgating season, and I love tailgating for my hometown Cleveland football team. And it's also holiday season, so people say, hey, why don't you bring something? Usually I'll throw out 100 pierogi on the skillet and other stuff, but it's making it a little bit more simple. We're gonna have more guests, so I decided to make it easier for myself, and I'm making pork, dumplings, sauerkraut, and kielbasa. And I'm gonna show you how to do it. First, of course we gotta have the kraut. I like star-crossed kraut. There's nothing wrong with canned kraut. It's just salt and cabbage, and you can see that in one of my other videos, how to make kraut. But I like it. I use it in my food service. It's consistent and holds well, and I'm going to show you how to prepare it a little bit better, too, to make it more party-friendly, more small-serving friendly. I'm going to make kopitka. Remember the kopitka on the other video, dumplings, but we're going to do something a little different with the dumplings, which I'll show you, too. I have my Polish smoked kielbasa from my local butcher farmer. Really great stuff. He used to go through 100 pounds of this a week, actually, not even an exaggeration. And if you remember my cutlet shabowy video, my goulash bag, I told you I'll find some use for my spare pork parts, and that's going to be our pork. And I'm going to show you how to even prepare that, because pork loin is very lean, and it can kind of get a little chewy or hard if you don't prepare. So I'm going to show you how to use some of the kraut juice to kind of make that problem go away. And so kielbasa, kraut, pork, dumplings, sauerkraut, and smoked kielbasa coming up. It's the holidays. It's tailgate time. Sauerkraut, oh sauerkraut, my friend is sauerkraut. I don't even know if that's a real song. I get excited when I cook. So I completely took off the lid on the other side, flip it over, and then I just vent it here so all the juices can come out. I told you I reserved the juice. I'm going to do something with the pork with that. I always drain my kraut. I never rinse it. I know that's an issue of debate, and people talk about it. My way hasn't gone wrong yet. So I do drain it, but I do not rinse it. So I have one of my cans of kraut drained, but not washed. And remember I told you I'm going to do something to it because we're talking about bite size. We're talking about party size portions. We're talking about ease of service. Now look, you see the kraut has those long strands. So we're going to cut this up a little bit. Some people do, but I'm going to show you how I do it. And I've always done it. I take the lid from the can. Now, please use a cloth on it, okay? I have learned the hard way, but I've done this so many times, but I learned the hard way until I figured out the right way. And just chop it. Just use your lid and chop it up. Okay. And we're going to repeat that when I put the second can in there. And then we're going to start baking that up. We're going to let it break down. Because I really like when you just cook it down and then it gets really brown and nice and soft but not mushy, which is again why I like this particular kraut. It's soft but not mushy. And in the Cleveland area, this pretty much is the kraut that people use for their pierogi stuffings. I'm talking about like larger creators and makers of dishes. But yeah, so this is what we use here in Northeast Ohio. It's really good quality. So, all right, I'm gonna get the second one going. And here is the second can. And there it is, all chopped up. And you see how it's much smaller, much more reasonably bite-sized pieces. So you don't have a long, stringy, piece of kraut on your fork. But see, it's real chopped up. I'm gonna eat that. To that kraut, before I cook it, I'm going to add about 2 small to medium-sized onions, or maybe 1 large onion, about 3 cups of onion chopped up, about that like that. I'm also adding caraway to the mix, so I'm going to mix that in with the onion. I'm going to stir it up and start cooking it. Our onions are in there, and now we're going to stir it up. And there's our kraut mixed with caraway and onion. So 2 of those size 6 cans made 1 deep half pan of kraut, just to give you some reference. So I'm going to put a lid on it, and I'm going to put this in the oven at about 300, between 300 and 325, and I'm going slow and low, like barbecue style, right? Slow and low, let it sit, and I'll probably be there for hours. So to the oven we go. Rest well, my krauty friend. I'll be back. And right now I'm starting to make the dumplings, the kopitka, which is in another video, or another instruction video and recipe on this same channel. And so I think I put the text in the bottom, so check it out. So that's happening while our kraut is in the oven, cooking slow and low. And soon I'm going to start the meat in a process which I'll show you. So it's all going to come together. All of it takes a little bit of time to prepare. So that's why we just, well, this can take a few hours, but it's well worth it. The kraut is in the oven, and it's been about an hour, a little more, and you can start to smell the caraway and the onion emitting from the oven, so that means that's cooking up good. And yeah, I pinched a little bit and tasted it because I can't resist. I love kraut. So I have my meat here, and also outside the potatoes are cooling for the kopitka, the dumplings. But I have meat here. Now, it might be a little bit overboard. I would recommend maybe half of what I have here, but this is my goulash freezer bag, and I just didn't want it to go bad with freezer burn and such, so I decided to just dump it all. So I have 4 pounds of pork here, and then I have about 2 pounds of the Polish kielbasa. I wouldn't go less on the Polish kielbasa if possible. That's always a nice treat. But the meat, it could be a little bit much, but it's no big deal. If I think it's too much, I just won't put it in each respective pan. I'll portion it out well. But right now, I have 4 pounds of this, 2 pounds of that. I'm going to start cutting this meat up and start doing something with it. So there we have our meat, portioned up to like seemingly bite-sized pieces. You can see, some not that big. Some are smaller. Some about that same size. Now, I told you it was about 4 pounds. Well, it looks like we got about a pound of like just fat and gristle stuff that just was really hard to use. I mean, I could probably get real detailed in trimming that out, but I don't want to lose fingers. So even if you see a little fat there, I mean, you see the meat there, but it's mostly fat, and it's just not, that kind of fat just doesn't render out too well. So there's some scrap that I'm just going to toss. I did the best I could. I mean, let's figure out of how many pork loins it took to make that, like 3 or 4 whole pork loins. That's the most waste I've got. Not bad. So check out what we're going to do with the meat. Check it out. Okay, so we have our meat in our bowl, and I'm using what I like to call my regular Polish spices, the flavors of Poland. People say like, oh my God, that tastes like my grandmother's, or how'd you get that flavor? Well, these are the flavors that you wonder what they are. This is what your grandma used. She used garlic, in this case, thyme, pepper, salt, and marjoram, majernik, kimianek, czosnek, sól, I pieprz. That's the same thing I just said, but in Polish. So I'm going to mix that all up, coat that meat all together with all those spices, and on to the next step. Mixed up all the herbs, coated them all well, and I have my Dutch oven. And remember I told you I reserved that kraut juice. So put about that much in there. You want to put a little layer on the bottom. And the purpose of this is, remember, it's pork loin, as I mentioned before, and it's not very fatty. And if you just bake it, it has a tendency to get hard or chewy. So we're going to try and break down those meat fibers with the acidity of the sauerkraut juice. Pork loin compared to other cuts of meat, maybe you're used to that nice, juicy, tender pork roast for dinner. Well, it's most likely a shoulder roast, also known as a Boston butt, and this is very lean, which is why we do things like schnitzels, schabowy, and other things to kind of work with that lack of moisture in it. So in this case, like I said, we're going to put it in the sauerkraut juice, which the acidity will break it down a little bit. We're going to put that in the Dutch oven and start baking. It's in there. It's in there. So you see that sauerkraut juice, once you put the weight of the meat down, it kind of rises up, and that's going to help break down that meat. So we're going to cap this off and put it in the oven. And since we have the oven open, let's take a look at our kraut. You see it's starting to cook down a little bit, getting a little bit brown on the side, which is fine. That's why I keep the heat slow and low, so it is starting to get cooked up, and I can't resist a little pinchy. Starting to get soft with that caraway, and that onion is coming out. So we're gonna put this Dutch oven in the oven. Same temperature. Actually turned up to 325. Okay. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. There we go. Look at that. He's got a friend now. The kopitka, the potato dumplings, are ready to be put in the water. And I told you there's going to be a difference in the size of the kopitka. That's like a regular size one right there. We make them for Sunday dinner, or as I did on the video. That's about the normal size we encourage you to make. I made these half that size. I'd say like less than an inch, a little under an inch. Because again, the dish is being made for a group event, so everyone can just scoop and you get a little bit of everything in your scoop. That's why we cut up the kraut. That's why we'll cut up the meat small. That's why we're going to cut the kielbasa small, so that you can scoop it up and get a little of everything on your plate, and so you could eat it better too. The best way I could say how big these are compared to, like, these are the regular size ones. These are about the size of gnocchi. You know, some people call these the Polish gnocchi, whatever, but that's about the size they are. Quite small. Give you a little less than that compared to that. So here we go. Here we go. See the difference in size? Check it out. The kraut has been cooking for about 3 hours. Looking good. It's browning up. But here's the cool thing. Check this out. Check out our pork. Look at that. It's more or less boiling. It's cooking. And it smells like a kielbasa. Those herbs we put in. So it's getting near ready to assemble. All my kopitka's done. All right, we're going to put this all together. And I have the kielbasa. Put that at the end. I'll explain that in a little bit. It's been over 3 hours, and it's time for the kraut to come out. That looks so great, and it's nice and soft. Perfect. And that flavor, caraway, onion. We're going to portion it out. I don't know if I need 2, 3, 4 pans yet. We're going to portion it out, start assembling it. Stick around. So what we got here is 3 half pans, so a pan, full pan and a half. And I filled it up about halfway, because we're going to start putting the meat and dumplings in. And I got a little bit left I'm going to save for myself, because, hey, we ain't got to eat, right? And here comes our pork. It has that earthy pork smell, as well as the very Polishy, sausagey. It's Polish. It smells Polish. And there's a little bit of fat in there, which helped, of course, add flavor and helped it cook. And it's very soft. I took out a couple pieces, and it's very moist, very tender. We escaped the problem of tenderloin being potentially tough or chewy because it is so lean. So we solved that problem. We're going to scoop it out with a slotted spoon and start distributing it in our kraut. All right. We have the meat, the pork, in the kraut. We're not going to stir it up too much. Just kind of spread it around, because it's going to get stirred as people eat it. They're going to lift it from the bottom, and it's going to stir in itself. So, again, just spread it out a little bit, because next we're going to put in our dumplings. We're going to stir that up. And then some special instructions regarding the kielbasa. The kielbasa. Not what a Hungarian do for a while. Kielbasa. And there's the dumplings. They're in there, evenly distributed. I'm going to stir them up a little bit. All stirred up. Right now, we have pork dumpling sauerkraut. We're going to add a little accent of the kielbasa, and here comes the trick. So as I've been talking through the whole recipe here, here's the trick with the kielbasa. Remember I told you it's already smoked. It's been cured with its herbs and salts, and then it was smoked. So it's cured. You can eat it just like it is. Just like bacon, which people don't understand that either. We just like it crispy. But bacon's edible because it's already smoked. It's cooked. It's cured. So because it's smoked versus fresh, or fresh kielbasa, I would put it in right now, and when I reheat it or cook it longer, it would cook in. But this is smoked. If you cook it a lot, especially in a pan like that, to reheat, it's going to shrivel up. It might lose some of its texture, even color. So I put it in now, let's say cold, and when I reheat this stuff, just before I go to the game and put it in my hot box, I'll put it in the oven for about a half an hour, warm it up, and then continue warming it on the shaver tray. But that kielbasa will warm up and be edible with the rest of this. So here we go. Time to cut the kielbasa. And there you have it. Pork, dumplings, kraut, and smoked Polish kielbasa. Tailgate food, party food, Polish food. SMACZNEGO. Hey, Subscribe to this page. There's more and more coming. Again, SMACZNEGO!